The UEFA Champions League is the most prestigious club competition in the world. To be able to compete in this tournament is an achievement on its own, but having what it takes to win the whole thing is an honor that only a handful of clubs have ever known. From Marseille winning the modern-day version of the Champions League in 1993 to Real Madrid's most recent title in 2024, a total of 14 different teams have lifted the iconic Champions League trophy. And with the new tournament format coming in the 2024-25 season, there will be a completely different path to being crowned the Champions League winner. Today we take a look back on all 32 seasons of the Champions League as we rank the most iconic winners of the past 3 decades. Starting in the F tier, we have Marseille's 1992-93 title-winning season and AC Milan's victory in 1993-94. Now, these two titles aren't necessarily ranked so low because of what these teams accomplished, but rather the format of the tournament itself. In Marseille's title-winning season, they faced Rangers, Club Brugge, and CSKA Moscow in the group stage, finishing with 3 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses, and a +10 goal differential. Their performance as group winners took them straight to the final, where they beat AC Milan by a score of 1-0 at the Olympiastadion in Munich. The following season, AC Milan's lackluster performance in the group stage saw them face Porto, Werder Bremen, and Anderlecht. They would manage only 2 wins, 4 draws, and 0 losses, scoring just 6 goals and conceding 2, but finishing top of Group B. They would redeem themselves in the knockout rounds with a 3-0 win over Monaco in the semi-finals and an incredibly dominant 4-0 win over Barcelona in the final. Both teams deserved their victories, but compared to some of the modern-day champions, these two sides can only make it into the F tier. Moving on to the D tier, we only have one team that find themselves in this rank, and that is the 1997-98 Real Madrid side. Their group stage consisted of Rosenborg, Olympiacos, and Porto. Out of the 6 games they played, they managed 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and a +11 goal differential. Their path to the final wasn't anything crazy either, as they beat Bayer Leverkusen 4-1 in the quarterfinals, Borussia Dortmund 2-0 in the semifinals, and Juventus 1-0 in the final. One of the more forgettable squads to win the Champions League, this Real Madrid side goes into the D tier today. Moving on to the C tier, the first 4 teams in this rank are the 1994-95 Ajax side, the 1995-96 Juventus squad, the 1996-97 Borussia Dortmund team, and the 2011-12 Chelsea side. Ajax were the dominant team in a group that contained AC Milan, Casino Salzburg, and AEK Athens. They managed 4 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses, and a +7 goal differential, finishing top of their group. Their momentum would continue in the knockout stage, where they beat Hajduk Split 3-0 in the quarterfinals, Bayern Munich 5-2 in the semifinals, and AC Milan 1-0 in the final. A pretty solid performance from a truly memorable Ajax squad. They go into the C tier today. The 1995-96 Juventus side also performed well in the group stage, coming up against Borussia Dortmund, Steaua Bucharest, and Rangers. They managed 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and a +11 goal differential, finishing with 13 points at the top of their group. With a 2-1 win over Real Madrid in the quarterfinals, a 4-3 win over Nantes in the semifinals, and a win over Ajax on penalties in the final, Juventus did not disappoint in their one and only Champions League victory. The 1996-97 Borussia Dortmund team would finish second in their group on goal differential, facing Atletico Madrid, Widzew Łódź, and Steaua Bucharest. They managed 4 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss with a +6 goal differential, missing out on top spot in their group to Atletico Madrid. They would go on to beat Auxerre 4-1 in the quarterfinals, Manchester United 2-0 in the semifinals, and reigning champions Juventus 3-1 in the final. A true one-hit wonder season for Germany's second best club side. Next up is the Chelsea squad of 2011-12, who faced Bayer Leverkusen, Valencia, and Genk in the group stage. Their somewhat disappointing form would see them win 3 games, draw 2, and lose 1, finishing with a +9 goal differential. They would go on to beat Napoli 5-4 in the round of 16, while also winning against Benfica 3-1 in the quarterfinals, upsetting Barcelona by a score of 3-2 in the semifinals, and beating Bayern Munich in their own backyard on penalties to win the final. A rather uneventful run until the semifinals. This Chelsea side find themselves in the C tier today. The remaining 2 teams who make up the C tier are the 2015-16 Real Madrid side and the 2018-19 Liverpool team. Real Madrid would cruise to the top of their group that contained PSG, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Malmo FF. They managed 5 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses, and a +16 goal differential, including an 8-0 thrashing of Malmo on the final match day. They would go on to beat Roma 4-0 in the round of 16, as well as Wolfsburg 3-2 in the quarterfinals, Manchester City 1-0 in the semifinals, and Atletico Madrid on penalties to win their 5th Champions League and 11th European title. A great group stage performance and some decent knockout round results, this version of Real Madrid goes into the C tier. And last but not least is the 2018-19 Liverpool squad. A relatively easy group stage saw them face PSG, Napoli, and Red Star Belgrade. However, they only managed 3 wins, 0 draws, and 3 losses with a +2 goal differential as they finished second in their group. They would redeem themselves in the knockout stage, beating Bayern Munich 3-1 in the round of 16 and dominating Porto 6-1 in the quarterfinals. They made one of the most remarkable Champions League comebacks by beating Barcelona 4-3 in the semifinals and kept Tottenham trophyless by winning 2-0 in the final. These 6 teams all had great runs in their respective tournaments, but compared to what's above them, they only cracked the C tier today. Moving on to the B tier, the first 4 teams are the 1998-99 Manchester United squad, the 1999-2000 Real Madrid side, the 2000-2001 2001 Bayern Munich team and the 2002-03 AC Milan team. Manchester United's first Champions League victory started out shaky as they faced Bayern Munich, Barcelona and Brøndby in the group stage. They only managed 2 wins, 4 draws and 0 losses, but scored 20 goals and conceded 11, finishing with 10 points in second place. They would go on to beat Inter Milan 3-1 in the quarterfinals, as well as edging out Juventus 4-3 in the semifinals. They would go on to beat Bayern Munich by a score of 2-1 in one of the most memorable Champions League finals of all time, with 2 goals in stoppage time securing the win for the English squad. Moving on to the 1999-2000 Real Madrid side, this team would have to get through not 1 but 2 group stages on their way to their second Champions League title. Their first group stage consisted of Porto, Olympiacos and Molde, where they cruised by with 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss and a +8 goal differential. Their second group stage saw them face off against Bayern Munich, Dinamo Kiev and Rosenborg, where they managed 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses and finished second with 10 points. They would show their dominance in the knockout stage, beating reigning champions Manchester United 3-2 in the quarterfinals, as well as Bayern Munich in the semifinals by the same scoreline, before destroying Valencia by 3-0 in the final. A long but rewarding path for Spain's most successful Champions League side. Next up is the Bayern side of 2000-2001, who topped their group in both group stages. In the first group stage, they faced off against PSG, Rosenborg and Helsingborg, coming out with 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss and a +5 goal differential. Their second group stage would see them face Arsenal, Lyon and Spartak Moscow, as they managed 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss and a +3 goal differential. They would go on to beat Manchester United 3-1 in the quarterfinals, as well as Real Madrid by the same scoreline in the semifinals, and a thrilling penalty shootout victory over Valencia in the final. A truly great performance from Germany's most successful club side. And next up is the AC Milan team of 2002-03, who also topped both of their group stages. They faced off against Deportivo La Coruña, Lens and Bayern Munich in their first group stage, coming away with 4 wins, 0 draws, 2 losses and a +5 goal differential. Their second group stage saw them face Real Madrid, Borussia Dortmund and Lokomotiv Moscow, where they managed the same record but only scored 5 goals and conceded 4. Their path to the final wasn't anything crazy, as they beat Ajax 3-2 in the quarterfinals, beat Inter Milan on away goals and defeated Juventus on penalties in the final. A tournament that started off great but slowly faded off, this Milan side only make the B tier today. The next 4 teams in the B tier are the 2006-07 AC Milan squad, the 2009-10 Inter Milan team, the 2016-17 Real Madrid side, and the 2020-2021 Chelsea squad. This AC Milan squad would get off to a slow start, facing off against Lille, AEK Athens, and Anderlecht in the group stage. They would come away with 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses, and a +4 goal differential to top their group with 10 points. They would pick things up in the knockout rounds, beating Celtic 1-0 in the round of 16 and Bayern Munich 4-2 in the quarterfinals. They would get a statement win over Manchester United in the semifinals by a score of 5-3 before getting revenge on Liverpool for the 2005 final in the last match of the season. A memorable team who find themselves in the B tier today. Next up is Jose Mourinho's Inter Milan squad of 2009-10. They would have a lackluster group stage coming up against Barcelona, Rubin Kazan and Dinamo Kiev. They would manage only 2 wins, 3 draws and 1 loss, scoring just 7 goals and conceding 6. It would be their knockout round performance that would propel them to stardom, as they beat Chelsea 3-1 in the round of 16, as well as CSKA Moscow by a score of 2-0 in the quarterfinals before beating Barcelona 3-2 in the semifinals. Their iconic run would culminate in a 2-0 win over Bayern Munich at the Santiago Bernabeu in a thrilling finale. A truly iconic run that won't be forgotten anytime soon. Next up is the Real Madrid side from 2016-17. The Spanish side would start things off slow as they faced Borussia Dortmund, Legia Warsaw and Sporting CP in the group stage. They would only manage 3 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses and a +6 goal differential as they finished second in their group. They would turn things up in the knockout rounds, where they beat Napoli by a score of 6-2, as well as Bayern Munich by a score of 6-3 in the quarterfinals before beating Atletico Madrid 4-2 in the semifinals. Their efforts would propel their team to a 4-1 win over Juventus in the Champions League final in one of the most entertaining matches in recent years. An impressive but somewhat less memorable performance from Real Madrid, this side goes into the B tier today. Next up is the 2020-2021 Chelsea side, which happened in the second season affected by the pandemic and saw Chelsea face off against Sevilla, Krasnodar and Rennes. They managed 4 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses and a +12 goal differential as they topped their group with 14 points. Their impressive form continued as they beat Atletico Madrid 3-0 in the round of 16, as well as Porto by a score of 2-1 in the quarterfinals and a historic 3-1 win over Real Madrid in the semifinals. Their 1-0 win over Manchester City wasn't anything special, but it capped off an impressive tournament for a team that most people were counting out from the start, so they go into the B tier today. To finish off the B tier, we have the Manchester City squad of 2022-23. The English squad came up against Borussia Dortmund, Sevilla and Copenhagen in the group stage and performed quite well. They won 4 games, had 2 draws and 0 losses, and finished with a +12 goal differential to top their group. The road to the final was just as impressive as they beat RB Leipzig 8-1 in the round of 16, as well as beating Bayern Munich 4-1 in the quarterfinals and surprising everyone by beating Real Madrid 5-1 in the semifinals. Their 1-0 win over Inter Milan may not have been the flashiest victory, but they won the club's first ever Champions League after a long but impressive run to the final. These 9 winners were all great in their own rights, and their impressive victories land them a spot in the B tier today. Moving on to the A tier, the first 4 teams to get into this spot are the 2001-02 Real Madrid team, the 2005-06 Barcelona squad, the 2007-08 Manchester United side, and the 2010-11 Barcelona team. This Real Madrid team would go on to top both of their group stages, facing Roma, Lokomotiv Moscow, and Anderlecht in their first group. They managed 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and a +8 goal differential to claim top spot with 13 points. Their second group stage would see them face off against Panathinaikos, Sparta Prague, and Porto. Atletico. They would make light work of these teams, coming away with 5 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses, and a +9 goal differential. Madrid continued their impressive run, beating Bayern Munich 3-2 in the quarterfinals while also beating rivals Barcelona 3-1 in the semi-finals. Their final encounter versus Bayer Leverkusen would end in a 2-1 win for the Spanish side, with Zinedine Zidane's left-footed volley going down in history as one of the best goals that the tournament has ever seen. A truly dominant run from Real Madrid, their 2001-02 side go into the A-tier today. Barcelona's first Champions League title of the modern era started in a group with Werder Bremen, Udinese, and Panathinaikos. They would make light work of those teams, managing 5 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses, and a +14 goal differential. Their momentum would continue in the knockout rounds as they beat Chelsea 3-2 in the round of 16, as well as Benfica 2-0 in the quarterfinals and AC Milan 1-0 in the semi-finals. Even without the help of Leo Messi, who was out with injury, goals from Eto'o and Belletti sealed the deal for Barcelona as they beat Arsenal in the final by a 2-1 scoreline. A truly special team who started Barcelona's dominance in the Champions League, this team goes into the A-tier. Next up is the 2007-08 Manchester United team. The English side started their title-winning campaign by facing Roma, Sporting CP, and Dinamo Kiev in the group stage. They managed 5 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses with a +9 goal differential and 16 points. Their form carried over to the knockout rounds where they beat Lyon 2-1 in the round of 16 while also beating Roma 3-0 in the quarterfinals and reigning champions Barcelona by a score of 1-0 in the semi-finals. Manchester United would go on to face Chelsea in the final, and after a truly nail-biting penalty shootout, we would see Cristiano Ronaldo and his teammates lift the Champions League trophy for the first time in his career. A truly special team with some incredibly great moments, this Manchester United squad goes into the A-tier today. Next up is the Barcelona squad from 2010-2011. The Spanish side found themselves in a group with Copenhagen, Rubin Kazan, and Panathinaikos. They would manage to get 4 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses, and a +11 goal differential, finishing with 14 points at the top of their group. Leo Messi's side didn't stop there as they went on to beat Arsenal 4-3 in the round of 16, Shakhtar Donetsk by a score of 6-1 in the quarterfinals, and beating their El Clasico rivals in Real Madrid by a score of 3-1 in the semi-finals. Barcelona would put on a spectacular show in the final at Wembley Stadium, beating Manchester United by a score of 3-1 to win their 3rd Champions League title in stunning fashion. A truly mesmerizing team to watch, they go into the A-tier today. The last 4 teams who complete the A-tier are the Bayern Munich side from 2012-2013, Real Madrid squad from 2017-2018, Real Madrid's team from 2021-2022, and Real Madrid's most recent victory in 2023-24. Bayern Munich would start their campaign off against Valencia, Bat Borisov, and Lille. A respectable 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and a +8 goal differential would be enough to secure top spot in their group. Bayern Munich would then go on to beat Arsenal on away goals after a 3-3 draw in the round of 16, while managing to beat Juventus 4-0 in the quarterfinals and absolutely obliterating Barcelona by a score of 7-0 in the semi-finals. An all-German final would see Bayern face off against Dortmund as they came out on top by a score of 2-1 in a truly thrilling match with many incredible moments. A special team that produced many special moments of brilliance, this Bayern side go into the A-tier today. Next up is Real Madrid's title-winning team from 2017-2018. The Spanish side relatively underperformed in a group that included Tottenham Hotspur, Borussia Dortmund, and Apoel. They managed 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and a +10 goal differential, finishing in 2nd place with 13 points. They turned up the heat in the knockout rounds, beating PSG by 5-2 in the round of 16, while beating Juventus 4-3 in the quarterfinals and winning against Bayern Munich by the same scoreline in the semi-finals. Their final matchup versus Liverpool is still a great game to look back on, as Real Madrid would be crowned champions after winning by 3-1. A truly memorable way to finish off their three-peat, the side goes into the A-tier today. Next up is the Real Madrid side from 2021-2022. They would face off against Inter Milan, Sheriff Tiraspol, and Shakhtar Donetsk in the group stage. They managed 5 wins, 0 draws, and 1 loss, while scoring 14 goals and only conceding 3. Their run in the knockout rounds was about as dramatic as they can get, beating PSG 3-2 in the round of 16, as well as Chelsea by a score of 5-4 in the quarterfinals and Manchester City by a score of 6-5 in the semi-finals. Their 2018 rematch versus Liverpool wasn't anything special, but a 1-0 win in the final would be enough to secure their 8th Champions League and their 14th European title. A truly dramatic run until the very last minute, the side goes into the A-tier today. And last but not least is the most recent champion Real Madrid with their squad from the 2023-2024 season. They would go on to face Napoli, Braga, and Union Berlin in the group stage and finally had achieved an unbeaten record. They managed 6 wins, 0 draws, and 0 losses, scoring 16 goals and conceding 7 as they topped their group with 18 points. They would go on to beat RB Leipzig by 2-1 in the round of 16 while just getting past Manchester City on penalties in the quarterfinals after a 4-4 draw. They managed to squeeze past Bayern Munich by a score of 4-3 in the semifinals, albeit amid some major controversy. The last final with the modern Champions League format would see them beat Borussia Dortmund by a score of 2-0 in a very entertaining match, giving the Spanish side their 9th Champions League title and their 15th European title. These teams all had spectacular runs in their title-winning campaigns, and they go into the A-tier today. And finally, we get to the S-tier. The first 4 teams at the top of this ranking are the 2003-04 Porto side, the 2004-05 Liverpool squad, the 2008-09 Barcelona team, and the 2013-14 Real Madrid side. Porto's incredible Champions League story started in a group featuring Real Madrid, Marseille, and Partizan. Despite the slow start where they managed 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss, they still managed to finish 2nd with 11 points. Their incredible run would start in the knockout rounds where they beat Manchester United by 3-2 in the round of 16 while also beating Lyon 4-2 4-2 in the quarterfinals and Deportivo La Coruña by 1-0 in the semifinals. Their miracle run would take them to the final, where they won by 3-0 against Monaco to cap off one of the greatest stories in Champions League history. One of the best underdog stories that we'll ever witness. This squad goes into the S tier today. Next up is the Liverpool squad from 2004-05. Their group stage performance wasn't anything special, as they faced off against Monaco, Olympiacos, and Deportivo La Coruña. They would go on to get 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses, scoring just 6 goals and conceding 3 as they finished second in their group. Their campaign would really kick off in the knockout rounds as they beat Bayer Leverkusen 6-2 in the round of 16, followed by a 2-1 win over Juventus in the quarterfinals, and then a 1-0 win over Chelsea in the semifinals. Their efforts would culminate in a final matchup versus AC Milan, which is without a doubt the best Champions League final in the tournament's history. After being down 3-0 in the first half, they would claw their way back into the game, scoring 3 goals in just 7 minutes, followed by a 3-2 win on penalties to seal the deal. One of the most memorable performances in Champions League history. This side goes into the S tier as well. Next up is the Barcelona squad from 2008-09. They would come up against Sporting CP, Shakhtar Donetsk, and FC Basel in the group stage and did not disappoint. They managed 4 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss, and a +10 goal differential as they topped their group with 13 points. Their road to the final is equally as impressive, beating Lyon in the round of 16 by 6-3, followed by a 5-1 win over Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals and a win on away goals versus Chelsea in the semifinals. The final would see Lionel Messi versus Cristiano Ronaldo on the world's biggest stage, as the side from Catalonia would come out on top in a thrilling 2-0 win. One of the best sides to ever play in the Champions League. The side goes into the S tier today. And next up we have the 2013-14 Real Madrid side. They would come up against Galatasaray, Juventus, and Copenhagen in the group stage and were dominant throughout. They managed 5 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses, while scoring 20 goals and conceding just 5. They would continue their winning ways, beating Schalke by 9-2 in the round of 16, followed by a 3-2 win over Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals and a 5-0 thrashing of Bayern Munich in the semifinals. Facing their city rivals in Atletico Madrid in the final, some last-minute heroics from Sergio Ramos would keep Real Madrid in the game. They would go on to score 3 goals in extra time, coming out on top in a 4-1 win in truly dramatic fashion. One of the most dominant teams in recent memory. This Madrid side goes into the S tier as well. The last 2 teams that make up the S tier are the 2014-15 Barcelona squad and the 2019-20 Bayern Munich team. Barcelona's most recent Champions League title saw them start off against PSG, Ajax, and Apoel in the group stage. They would cruise by their opponents, winning 5 games, drawing 0 matches, and only losing 1, while scoring 15 goals and conceding just 5 along the way. Their momentum would continue to the knockout rounds, where they beat Manchester City by 3-1 in the round of 16, followed by a 5-1 win over PSG in the quarterfinals and a 5-3 win over Bayern Munich in the semifinals. Barcelona's final matchup against Juventus was a masterclass from start to finish, as they would go on to win the match 3-1, capping off a truly spectacular Champions League season. A team that played some truly beautiful football. This side goes into the S tier. And last but certainly not least, we have the 2019-20 Bayern Munich side. The only Champions League winning side to go unbeaten throughout the entire tournament started their campaign off against Tottenham, Olympiacos, and Red Star Belgrade. They managed 6 wins, 0 draws, and 0 losses, while putting up a staggering +19 goal differential. The pandemic would throw the entire tournament into chaos, but this wouldn't stop Bayern from dominating the competition once play resumed. They managed a 7-1 win over Chelsea in the round of 16, followed by one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen in an 8-2 win over Barcelona and an impressive 3-0 win over Lyon in the semi-finals. The quietest Champions League final in history saw Bayern beat PSG by 1-0 in Lisbon, giving the German side their 3rd Champions League and finishing off a record-breaking sextuple season. The definition of pure dominance. This Bayern side go into the S tier today. So there you have it. We've ranked all 32 winners of the modern Champions League from 1993 to 2024. These are some of the best teams in football history, having produced some of the best goals, games, and moments that we as fans have ever witnessed. The Champions League is heading in a new direction starting in 2024, but these sides will never be forgotten. From Marseille's triumph in 1993 to Real Madrid's record-extending title in 2024, this truly is the pinnacle of club football. But what do you think of this Champions League ranking? Do you agree with it, disagree with it, or think that it's just about right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more football content, tier lists, and everything in between, and as always, I'll catch you next time.